नमस्कार और जुहार मु आपण मानकु अभिनंदन और स्वागत जणाउची। I welcome you all to the 4th edition of Foresight, where thought leaders of the country and the state debate and discuss key issues agitating our citizens. In its eventful journey since 1997, OTV has launched many new initiatives and crossed several milestones. Foresight is one such milestone, which was launched in 2011. OTV's tradition of unbiased coverage is rewarded by its viewers, which is obvious from the outstanding performance seen through the TRPs. We at OTV are committed to continuing this tradition and making sure that we present facts as they are without taking sides. Our credibility is our most prized possession, and this embodiment of this philosophy is in our slogan, "We report, you decide," which was coined again in 1997. The objective of Foresight is to ask our thought leaders to answer their questions to some of our fundamental questions, like, can we ensure social change rather than capitalize on social challenges for short-term political benefits, usually introduced with an eye on the next year's election. The rhetoric of policy change in India is focused on ousting the incumbent and capturing power. When will this change? Will India's media, judiciary, and the civil society have the will and resources to ensure India's transition into the next stage, leading to cleaner politics, a bipartisan fight against corruption, more honest business practices, and a channeling of private wealth into philanthropy? We desperately seek answers and hope that our thought leaders today will be candid and will give some radical thoughts and suggestions to our viewers. We in general and media in specific have an enormous responsibility to bring to the attention of others information they do not have. Information which has a potential of causing them to rethink long-held ideas. Last 4 conventions have debated and discussed issues of national and state importance by bringing together leaders from the field of politics, business, academia, art, culture, performing arts, and cinema. At this year's Foresight too, we have some very eminent dignitaries from various fields. We have Mr. Sam Pitroda, who's here with us despite his busy schedule. Mr. Sam Pitroda, Advisor to Prime Minister on Public Information, Infrastructure and Innovation. I now invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Sam Pitroda, to join me on the dais.
Thank you, Jaggi. Distinguished leaders from Orissa, it is indeed a special privilege for me to be here at home. I want to thank Jaggi for inviting me here, and I am here only because of these two people. I was just about to chicken out, but thank you for giving me this opportunity. We have had a long relationship, and I'm happy to be back here in Bhubaneswar. I agreed to talk about the future of media, but after listening to her, I thought I should talk a little bit about how we all perceive politics. Maybe I'll add that at the end. Because in India, everything begins and ends with politics, which is so very unfortunate. When I look at national debate on TV, which I hardly watch, it's all about cricket, Bollywood, and political gossip. There is very little developmental agenda which shape the destiny of this country on TV. It's all about political personalities. It's all about blaming each other, saying you didn't do this and you didn't do that, and you are corrupt and I'm great. And I think it is about time that we, people of India, begin to change that conversation substantially. But first, let me focus on the future of media. As Jaggi said, media has changed substantially in the last decade. World over, media is going through major transformation. I believe web and internet has changed almost everything we do. In a sense, almost everything we do today is essentially obsolete. Nothing like this ever happened in the history of mankind for almost 15,000 years. When language was invented, we could create communities and connect. When internet got invented, we could connect communities from all over the world instantly and bring together people with common interest on same platform. So world is truly connected because of internet. Internet is changing business models, delivery, it will change governance, education, health, agriculture, financial services, and it will definitely completely revamp media. So take, for example, print. Print media in Western countries today are finding very difficult time. In India, we always lag by some time. So if it is happening there, it's going to happen here sooner than we think. I don't read newspapers at all. At all. Don't even look at it. I get my news on the internet only about what I need to know. I'm not interested in movies because I never watch movies in my life. I haven't seen one for 40 years. I'm not interested in sports. I'm not interested in buying anything. So for me, 80% of the junk is useless. I'm sure for somebody else that is very important. But the point is, I can select the information I want. I can make my own newspaper based on the interests I have. I can get it on my mobile phone. I can get it on my tablet, on my laptop, and also on my home TV if I wish. So today, because of the cloud computing, open source software, low-cost terminals, world over, access has changed. One can always say, but what about India? Rural India doesn't have connectivity. Wait, we said same thing 20 years ago about telephones. When I started my work in India on telephones, we had just about 2 million telephones. It used to take 15 years to get telephone connection then. In a short span of 20 years, we have now 900 million phones, and we are a nation of a connected billion. The key challenge is how do we use this connectivity going forward to really restructure the country? And nobody is having conversation on that. Nobody is talking about what kind of a future we want to build, because everybody is busy blaming everybody else and not doing their job. In India, everybody knows how to do Prime Minister's job. Some of them can't even find a job. So much good stuff has been going on in the last decade that I think we have lost track of it. And I want to share with you some of my views on that. So going back to the role of media, media is going to be customized, instant, Local news today become international and international news become local. If there is a snow in Chicago, I get calls in Delhi. I don't know what interest they would have, but I get 10 calls saying, oh, it's snowing like hell in Chicago. News today is of a different type than we have had in the past. Convergence is here to stay. So the earlier we had print and broadcast. And both were in a sense broadcast with no interactivity. One was broadcast over the air, other one was broadcast over the print. So whatever they print is the news. And whatever they broadcast is something you have to watch. I think that model is obsolete. It is no longer about one-way communication. It's about not only selecting your news, but also about making news in the process, commenting on news. So because of internet, reach has changed and richness has changed. Access is very different and content is very different. Today, telecom is one piece of the puzzle. There is a lot that goes in the back to create content, applications, infrastructure. Today we have no content of our own, very little. So if you have internet, you basically have 90%, 95% of the content from Western world. Because local content in local language is very little. So one major task for all of us is to really begin to create huge amount of local content. If I look at just Orissa, the amount of content to be created in Orissa in terms of music, art, culture, history, literature is probably 20 years of work if you want to do it right. And very little emphasis is given today on local content and content creation. So I started taking little more interest in broadband and broadcast for the last few years. And as a result, I got to work on a special committee that Minister of Information and Broadcast had set up to look at the future of Prasar Bharati. Prasar Bharati, which consists of Doordarshan and All India Radio, today serves large population and is always criticized for content, quality. You have huge amount of people and very few people really watch with interest their content. So we looked at, as a group, the whole question of how do you restructure Prasar Bharati. And we focused on 8 aspects of Prasar Bharati, which is one piece of the media in India because there is big private piece. But Prasar Bharati does reach out to large rural communities all over the country. So we looked at organization related to autonomy, freedom, flexibility. We looked at finances, human resource, technology, content, international peace, which we don't have yet, social media, and archiving. There is so much of archiving material with Prasar Bharati that we have not been able to monetize. But these are all wild ideas. We are not really equipped to accept generational change. We talk about it, we agree with it, but we don't do it. National Knowledge Commission had recommended, for example, a commission to restructure 54,000 libraries we have in this country. This was 7 years ago. Everybody agrees, everybody says it's a great idea, nobody does anything. because those who are in power get shaken up with change. What happens to my job? Where do I go? Why should I do something additional? And I'm afraid that a lot of these great reports don't get implemented, partly because people are afraid to change. But media and technology is really forcing change in the system. I tell many times that I'm very hopeful and bullish about India, mainly because of young talent and new technology. Technology today offers some very interesting solutions, not just IT, but also biotech, nanotech, material, energy. With these new tools and new technology, we can begin to solve problems differently. But problems are not going to be solved differently by all those who are in 40s. Problems are going to be solved differently by people who are in 20s and 30s. Because they have no vested interest in preserving status quo. I always mention education. Today, for some reason, when we think of education, we automatically assume duster, blackboard, chalk, teacher, textbook, exam, grade, certificate. You don't need any of this stuff. Because best of the best have created content on the web. All you need is motivation, time, and content. So you don't need really teacher to learn. You need teacher as a mentor. But when you saw these teachers react, I said, look, you are obsolete. I don't need you. And the unions get upset. But the fact is, we are not training teachers to be mentors. Why should I take 4 years to get a degree? I think we are at a point where technology is forcing us to ask these kinds of questions that we had never asked before. We ought to be asking same questions in media. Saying, does it really make sense to get news from a bunch of newspapers and editors? Their view has to be forced on me? Don't I have a view? I can't outsource thinking. See, I find today in India, everybody has outsourced thinking. Whatever they tell you is what you think is the right. You can't outsource thinking. Some people have to think on their own. And today, media gives you that opportunity. So in a sense, I see a day where every home will be wired with cable, fiber optics. Every home will have gigabit of bandwidth. Every home will have voice, video, data, graphics, your own family portals and everything on your fingertip. Everybody will have their own library of books and movies and all of that. It's not too far. Everything that is centralized is going to be decentralized. News is going to be decentralized. You will select 10 people that you want to hear from, and you will ignore 10,000 who are forcing news on you today. Sometimes I find that what people call news in India is no news to me. I feel sorry for the intelligence of the guy who is giving me news. But that's the way it is. Because his world is so very narrow, so very focused on doing this or doing that, and I'm looking at something totally different. Not to say that I'm smarter and he's not. Don't get me wrong. But the point is perspective change. News always matters based on where you are looking from. If you look from here, it looks very different than if you look from here, or you look from there, or you look from some other angle. So media is going to change, substantially is changing. It is going to be based on new technology of internet, web, new access, new tools, new software. But I don't think we can keep up with the technology. Technology is so far ahead of us that it will take us a long time to create regulatory framework, mindset change, accept reality. and really change the way technology forces us to change. Now let me tell you a little bit about what I have been trying to do, because it fits into this whole media strategy. I worked on telecom in 80s, and then in 2004, I had a heart attack, quadruple bypass, I went back to US, Rajiv Gandhi died. And then in 2004, I decided to come back again, because I realized that for India to grow, we need to focus on education. Spent about 5 years on National Knowledge Commission, looking at 5 aspects of knowledge: access, concepts, creation, applications, and services. And then realized that the next 2 big things that I could help accomplish based on my background, because I can't do everything, I'm not an expert on water and agriculture and 50 other things, but I know a little bit about telecom and IT and innovations. So I said, if we can take telecom infrastructure of connectivity and billion people connected for the first time, add to that knowledge base for our young, what we really need now is democratization of information. If we want Indian democracy to flourish, we got to democratize information. And the way to democratize information is to build 2 major networks. We have already built one called Knowledge Network to connect 1,500 roads with 40 gigabit bandwidth to connect all our universities, libraries, R&D institutions, and all of that. Cost us about $2 billion. Then we are now building optical fiber network to connect 250,000 panchayats, local governments, with hundreds of megabit of bandwidth. That would be accomplished in 12 to 18 months. When that happens, you have connectivity everywhere. In the process, mobile phones have penetrated everywhere. Cost of the tablets and terminals will go down. People will begin to create local applications in local language, local content, and hopefully it will begin to transform how we access information. But this is just the network piece. We need platforms. Nandan is creating platform for ID. And a lot of people have criticized without really understanding what that is. It's always very easy to criticize. You can criticize me for my hairstyle. Maybe you are right. For me to feel good about you, I must feel good about myself. If I don't feel good about myself, I can never feel good about you. And I find in India, a lot of people don't feel good about themselves. So they are waiting to be heard. And I see that in media a great deal. Information is the biggest bottleneck, because today we don't have the infrastructure. So we create these applications for driver's license, Narega, food distribution, income tax, passport, and then you begin to create new delivery system. When all of this infrastructure is ready in the next couple of years, I believe you are really creating new nation. This government is already spending 100,000 crores to build this infrastructure. I'm sure you have never heard of this. I'm sure newspapers don't write about it because it is not interesting. But this is what makes a nation. Nations don't get made with cricket and Bollywood and political gossip. Nations get made with a lot of hard work, long-term vision, and in the process you find problems in implementation because nobody is used to all this. I remember when I started my work in telecom in 80s, people used to say, why are you working on telephones? It's elitist, it is urban, it is only for rich people. Look where we are today. Not only we have 900 million phones, but we are also generating $120 billion worth of software export every year, year after year. So I think ICT is going to bring about openness, accessibility, connectivity, networking, democratization, decentralization, and generational transformation. A lot of this is already going on. And I must tell you that this requires a lot of vision. But at the end of the day, three things matter in India. Disparity between rich and poor, urban, rural, educated, uneducated has to be narrowed substantially. Everything we do must focus on narrowing that disparity. Two, young, 550 million young below age of 25. What do we do with them? Jobs, training, skill, prosperity, future. This is the workforce for the world. How do we help them create future for them? And three, development. Everything is happening in India, perhaps not happening at the pace you and I would like. We need more roads, we need better quality, we need access to all of these things for the poorest of the poor. When all of these things get done, we will cease to be a developing society. Until then, the journey has to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Pitroda. That was a very insightful keynote. I think it's a great start to this convention. Before I open the floor for discussion or questions, may I take the privilege of asking you the first question?
Please.
You spoke about development of information infrastructure, which is possible when broadband becomes ubiquitous in the country. We've been hearing about how the government is planning to lay fiber optics all over and increase the penetration of broadband, which is pretty low right now. When do you see that changing? When can we see that dream
18
fulfilled?
months. We have spent 3 years in planning, 3.5 years.
Okay.
Orders are issued. Work has started. We have already connected a couple of hundred panchayats. BSNL, Railtel, and Power Grid, along with the private parties, are digging and connecting. It will happen. When I say 250,000, it may be 227,000. So don't get saying, these 15 fellows didn't get connected, because there are areas in Arunachal Pradesh and others where we won't get the connectivity. So just don't complain.
Thank you. I truly hope that that dream will be fulfilled in 18 months.
It will happen.
I will talk to you after 18 months.
Absolutely. 18 may be 20. But if I say 20, it will be 24. So I stick to 18. And you can then tell me that you are wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong by 2 months.
So my question is, so when I can elect my MP or MLA by sitting at home by sending a SMS?
Technology is here today to conduct entire election on cell phone. Nobody is doing it anywhere in the world.
Now there is a sincere effort to probably recreate Nalanda in Bihar. You being at the helm, why can't we have something recreation of Puspagiri, 7th century old, one of the best universities, through you, sir? Great idea. Find local champions and we'll do it. You got to find local champions. If you expect government of India to do it, it'll never happen. But if there are local champions who are pushing, then we get international community to participate. All you need is 3 to 5 committed, passionate people who have no vested interest. I've learned one thing, that when you have vested interest, things get complicated. If you have public interest, passion, things happen. People will come from all over the world and join you.
Thank you once again. Thank you for being here, and thank you for enlightening us with such a wonderful talk.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your thought-provoking views, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Now I would request Mrs. Jaggi Mangat Panda to present the OTV Foresight Memento to Mr. Sam Pitroda.
Ideology and personality are not necessarily in conflict with each other. But the subject is made easy by a very simple fact.